Welcome to the Your Voice is Your Power podcast. My name is Jasmine Taylor. I do work for Active Minds. I'm the sales manager for the Active Minds Speakers Bureau. And at Active Minds, we are the nation's premier organization for mobilizing youth and young adults around mental health. So again, just a reminder of the premise, we have the Your Voice is Your Power podcast as a series by Active Minds that will focus specifically on mental health advocacy, which means advocacy on all levels. So in your school, in your community, and even advocating for yourself, which is super important. Each season of this podcast will focus on a distinct demographic and mental health advocacy topic. So we're at season 1, where we are discussing Black women self-care and advocacy. And just to give a quick reminder, just kind of set the tone for everything. Our why for the importance of this podcast episode and first season is best quoted by B. Atkins Jackson in 2020. There is a need of definition of self-care for Black women that includes the role of structural and external factors in requiring self-care as survival. Additionally, there is a need for empirical research that connects the dots and the literature and intersectional oppression of self-care practice. And furthermore, there is a need for delineated self-care practices for Black women to engage that improve health. So as we digest that quote that just has just levels, I would like to take a wonderful moment to introduce our guest today. Today we have Miss Jade Mathis. And just a little bit of background before I give her brag book. I'm really big on bragging because she has a lot to brag about here. Jade Mathis, also known as the Resilient JEM, is one of our Active Mind speakers. In addition to being a civil rights attorney, a television personality, and mental health advocate. While following in the footsteps of her father, host of the Emmy Award-winning Judge Mathis show, Jade experienced several obstacles and setbacks on her road to becoming an attorney. After receiving a life-changing diagnosis of clinical depression, ADHD, and a learning disorder her junior year in college, she was determined to change the way the world views mental health. In 2016, she gained national notoriety after sharing her story of resilience and perseverance and her vital testimony, "Don't Quit, Anything Can Happen" video. Welcome to the show, Jade.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Hi, thank you for being here. Let's see. So, first and foremost, I do want to take a second before we jump into the questions and things. Is there anything else in your brag book? Because I know you have a nice menu. So I do want to take a moment just to really just give you your flowers. Go ahead and brag about what you got, so we can really get to know you better.
Yeah, so because this is surrounded around mental health, I am an attorney as well. I do work in that area, but my passion is actually the mental health area. And I do work with the National Institute of Health. I'm a mental health influencer for them. And I am a TEDx speaker. That is probably one of my proudest accomplishments. And I did my TEDx on mental health as well and resilience. So that's probably one of my proudest accomplishments, even beyond the legal field.
Good. I love it. I love it. TEDx is my favorite. The way I play that all day too. Awesome. So we will jump right on in. When we're looking at the college experience and just things that we learn, that's like the one time that everyone really does get a chance to learn about themselves and just the self-discovery process. So can you tell us more about your college experience and who you were as a college student?
Yeah, absolutely. So for my first year of college, I went away to college when I was 17. I think I had a pretty normal experience my first 2 semesters. However, when I was going into my second year, I started to notice that I was sleeping a lot. So I wasn't making it to class. I started to notice that I was in the bed probably about 70% of the day. And when I mean sleeping a lot, I mean sleeping like 15, 17 hours. And then I started noticing that number one, I never had any energy. But when I did have energy, I would go and shop and probably spend all of my rent money on just things at the mall. And I was like, I haven't always been like this. I'm not sure what happened or what's going on. And that's when I told my father, because we're really close. And then he told me he wants me to go talk to a school counselor. And I went to talk to one of my college counselors, and she recommended me to a psychologist off campus. And that's when I was diagnosed with the clinical depression, ADHD, and a learning disorder. So after that, my college experience went from probably traditional the first year, a little decline, until very non-traditional. And in fact, I withdrew from school immediately when I did receive those diagnoses. My parents were like, "You need to withdraw." I was in school in Atlanta. They were like, "You need to move back to Michigan and to have the proper help and be around family where I'm from." So I then re-enrolled the previous semester, but it actually took me one extra year to graduate. So I was a 5-year college student. I say that because of the setbacks. And then after the diagnosis, things were kind of never the same as a college student. I don't think I had the college experience that a lot of people had because of that.
Oh, well, it's a lot of changes that kind of happen within that process. We're glad to have you here now. So, so when you're looking at receiving that diagnosis and going through that process, when would you say that your mental health advocacy journey truly began?
It began so probably a couple months after I received the diagnosis. I was still pretty depressed, and I had to move back home. And then I started seeing a psychiatrist and having medication treatment that I had to take regularly every single night. So once the medication kind of started to kick in, probably about 3 or 4 months later, when I actually snuck behind my parents' back and re-enrolled at the local university to start that following semester. But because my parents wanted me to still stay out for a while, but I was like, I want to be an advocate and a voice for other people with disabilities, that you can still do or be whatever you want to be in spite of whatever your hardship looks like and what that looks like. Mine looks like mental illness, but everybody has a different one. So that's when I said I want to be a voice for something bigger and a purpose for something bigger than myself. I studied broadcast journalism in school because I wanted to be a news reporter. But after that diagnosis, I wanted to go into a field that would allow me, number one, to give people second chances, because I felt like that's what I was getting after my diagnosis, and to just kind of be a testament to people that were going through obstacles. And listen, I sucked at math, so being a doctor was completely out of the question. So I said, okay, law is another field that would allow me to personally touch the lives of other people and give them second chances. So that's when I started my advocacy and started applying to take the law school admissions exam in my senior year of law school. And then that's when the struggle started to get into law school. And that was another year-long process of taking the law school admissions exam and failing and taking it again and doing even worse. And then applying to 7 law schools. They all said no. And I took it one more time. And then that's when I got into the one law school that I graduated from.
I love it. And I think I love how you highlight the importance of not giving up just because you have like an unconventional path through school, especially in that college setting when you're learning yourself and giving yourself that grace. So I definitely appreciate that just about your story in total. That resilience that's shown, but the positive resilience. I always have to define that one. The positive resilience that's shown within your story and the process is at such a young age as well. When you're looking at your identity as a Black woman, how do you feel that your identity was shaped by your experience with mental health?
So before I am a mental health, I call myself, I guess, a warrior now, or a patient. um, I'm a Black woman. So I look at myself as that first, and then I look at myself as a person who has a diagnosis or a mental illness. And as being a Black woman, I'm part of a marginalized community, right? And part of the advocacy that I do is advocating for the voiceless, advocating for the disenfranchised, and fighting for that. So that also looks like doing that as a Black woman in the space of mental health. So that gives me a greater I guess, a greater push and a greater fight because we are some of the ones, or just the Black community in general, that don't really have a voice when it comes to mental illness, or don't want to talk about it because of the historical stigmatizations and those type of things. But it gives me another to an underrepresented community that's marginalized. It gives me another reason to advocate on behalf of two communities that I'm a part of. So I actually take it as an honor that I can be part of both of these marginalized or underrepresented communities, and it gives me a more of a powerful voice to fight for both of them.
I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Because we need somebody up there. And it's always good to have people to look up to within that process. As you know, I love sharing stories. So it's the best way to get it across and make people feel seen, heard, and understood. Um, so when you're looking at your academics, how do you feel that they influence your mental health advocacy overall?
Oh, child, my grades were horrible. I've always been probably a C student, like a solid C student. But again, that was before my diagnosis. So I don't think we ever noticed. I was good at what I was good at. So I was an A student in English and writing and reading, but in other things, I was not so good. So I may have been a solid C student after the D's with math and science and foreign languages, things that I didn't know my learning disorder wouldn't allow me to conceptualize sometimes, or my brain just can't pick up on certain things. And that's something I had to learn with the ADHD diagnosis and the learning disorder diagnosis. I didn't get diagnosed until I was, what, 20, like a junior in college. So then I understood this is probably why I didn't know I had a math disorder. This is why I always had F's in math. I just thought, I don't know, I thought I was lazy in it, but I have a learning disorder that will not allow my brain to pick up on numbers or signals. So in college, what I actually did was, when the doctor said, yeah, you're not going to be able to pick up on math. And we had to take an exit exam in college for math for me to exit. And I had my doctor write a letter to the dean of the university to say, listen, she's not going to pass this. Like, I probably would have still been there to this day if I didn't have that letter to say she is just not going to be able to pass math. That's not going to happen. So I had to learn, even in law school, in taking the bar. I took the bar 5 times. I failed it 6 times. I failed it 5 times. But in law school, when I learned that I had ADHD, and that's why it was taking me so much harder and so much longer to conceptualize what they were trying to say, I started saying, okay, well, you have to do post-its, Jade. You have to do highlights, Jade. Okay. It may take another student 2 days, and it may take you a week and 5 different strategies, but you're going to have to give yourself this patience and grace. Another thing that I did is that I realized with my disorders that I couldn't really focus with a lot of people around me. So I changed in law school to all evening classes. And that way I had classes from 6 to 9 p.m. I would go to the library because it was 24 hours. I would go at like 10 p.m. after eating, and I would stay from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. when people started coming. And then I would go home and go to sleep. So those mental disorders, absolutely, when I learned what they were, it kind of shifted how I had to move in school. And it also shifted the patience I had for myself. And one of the most important things that I did, and I always tell people, is that I enrolled at the Office of Disabilities. And I think that's the only way that I graduated from college, that I graduated from law school, and that I passed the bar, is because I had special accommodations. Because if had I not had those, I don't think I would have been on an even playing field and able to compete with people who don't have those disorders. So a lot of people think that it's embarrassing and they don't want to, go to the Office of Accommodations. But that extra time, and you sitting in the room with yourself and not being in there with hundreds of people distracting and tapping pencils and stuff, they makes a huge difference. So I advocated for myself to get all of the accommodations that I needed because I knew I needed them to survive.
I love that. There's a lot. So just to not sum it up, but to go through the highlights, I love that I heard the mention of grace, because it's a reoccurring conversation about giving yourself grace, as well as your resources. I don't think that I personally didn't know until you've mentioned it that that was something that someone could do. So I think it's really important to understand that piece of resource, and really utilizing sometimes the hidden resources that are on campus, but they're there. So continuing to ask those questions. So, like you said, like doing what's best for you, and not feeling that, again, the shame of it, of asking those questions and utilizing those resources, because all you're doing is doing what's best for you and your growth. I really do appreciate that element of the step you took towards that. I think it's very important beyond. Um, so, looking back at your college self, so when you're picturing all of the things and you're like each day of you figuring out these new strategies to really help yourself exceed, and truly pushing yourself and chasing after your dreams, if you had to go back and have a chat with your college self, um, what advice would you give her around mental health and just around self-care overall?
I think in college, I did not have a lot of balance. I can be a very all or nothing person, and I could be a black or white person, no real gray area. And that caused, if anything, probably more stress and anxiety, particularly when I figured out I had ADHD and it takes us a lot longer to get started, to be motivated, to stay focused on one thing. Like I had to, now I've learned with being a career professional that there's balance, right? So you can set up these days to do this and you can have the intentions of doing this, but if you don't, it's okay. Like you'll live another day to do it. I mean, my world used to be over if I could not get that schedule and the things I had on there, the times I had them and the days, I would beat myself up. But I think now having that balance to say, as long as you get to it, but don't give yourself that pressure of getting to it. You know what I mean? Like know yourself enough to know, like that still that grace yourself. Know how you operate. So now I know how I operate. I'm like, all right, I'll prioritize the things that I know are due right away. And because I have these disabilities and these disorders, and sometimes there's days when my self-care looks like doing absolutely nothing because I'm just exhausted. I'm mentally, emotionally out of it, or depression just knocks me down. You know, I have depressed days, a lot of depressed days when I just do not have the capacity to do absolutely anything. So I would tell myself as a college student, have that balance and that grace that you'll get to it, but don't give that don't use that schedule and say I have to just stick to this schedule and drive yourself crazy that way.
Agreed, agreed. And we are in agreement that it takes time, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Patience, time, and practice. Yep.
Yes. It
Because a
does.
lot of times I feel like we want things to happen now, and we're pushing
It,
ourselves to like change the habit now. It takes practice. It takes some
yeah. And
time.
imperfections. That's another thing in college. I didn't, I was so scared to make a mistake or do this or do something I was going to regret. Now I understand that we are all imperfect and that it's going to happen. Like you're not going to be good at everything. You're not going to be able to complete everything. You're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Life goes on after those mistakes. You want to be perfect around that age. And while you're in school and high achievers, particularly in law school or med school or grad school, you're in there where people are all the top of the top in their, professions are just a type A personality. So everyone wants to be a perfectionist. And it's just the reality is that you are going to make mistakes and not be good at everything. And that is okay.
Exactly. There's strength in being perfectly
Yes.
imperfect.
Yes.
Very much so. So, are there pieces of advice you would offer other Black women who may be struggling to prioritize their own mental health needs or even just advocating for themselves overall?
I think as Black women, we have this, I don't know if it's the ideology that we have or society has placed on us, but that we have to be super women, right? We're mothers, we're career women, we are the number one educated. So in this field, we have to put out all the fires. We're at church, we're in the office, we just have so much to do. I don't think that a lot of us sit back and realize that you cannot pour from an empty cup. So, yes, you can do all these things, but should you have to? It's not fair to yourself that you feel like you have to or you're putting that pressure. And eventually that wears on you. And you're not going to be able to accomplish or be good at almost anything if you're not mentally, emotionally, or physically well enough to do those things because you're burnt out, you're overwhelmed, you're stressed. So I think part of the resilience is saying that yes, I'm still going to be able to do these things, but I know when to press pause. I say all the time, know when to press pause. know when to step away, because you can come back to it. So that you doing that doesn't mean that you're not resilient. It means that you're being in tune with yourself and saying, yeah, if I keep going, I'm gonna burn out. And if I burn out, I'm not good to anyone, including myself or my family or my job. So I think really learning, I didn't learn how to press pause until I was a prosecutor, and it was about to wear me thin. And I almost had a Britney Spears moment in my office. The first Britney Spears, when you shaved her head off, I almost had one of those moments when I came back from court one day, because they kept putting files on my desk with new cases, and I had just finished a horrible case. And I came back from court and I was like, I just need a minute. And it was new files. And I was like, I got to get up out of here, because what I'm about to do is tear this office up, because I got to go. And that's when I went until I left for the day, and emailed HR and was like, listen, I need a sabbatical. What do I need to do? And they were like, you go to your therapist and you get a letter and they'll write one to us. And I'm like, okay, I have got to do that. I'll come back to work eventually when I feel better. But right now, oh no, it's getting really bad. So I think knowing when to press pause internally, feeling like that, and being comfortable enough, even if you're not comfortable enough, telling someone. Like I always tell people, there's ADA, the Office of Accommodations, there EEOC. Like there's ADA laws that will accommodate that stuff, and people are so. And then there's, you can't really divulge that information. HR knows what they can do legally and not legally. So a lot of times you don't have to worry. People are like, well, what do they tell a whole office, and what do they tell someone that? They understand that there's a legal issue and you cannot disclose that type of information. So that's something I tell women, don't worry about that as well, because they understand, unless they want to get the draw suit off of them, that's something that they can't do as well.
Right. They don't want the lawsuit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
It's HIPAA laws. Yeah. Because HIPAA applies to mental wellness as well as physical. So I tell people, look at the same way. Just like if you're in a hospital or you're having chemo or something like that, or kidney failure, look at your mental wellness the same way. When I needed to go for sabbatical, I needed to go. I needed to go ASAP before I ended up in an institution. So the same HIPAA laws apply to your mental wellness as it does to your physical.
I love that. And it's the way that you phrased it as well as you hear a lot of conversation around relating your mental health to your physical health, because it's true. If somebody goes, they get a cut or a wound, they
Yeah.
address it immediately. So it's knowing if something is wrong, again, it's okay to not be okay, but admitting it so that you're not, you have to love yourself first and kind of walk that piece. And I
Yeah.
really do think we should make it a hashtag that says press pause, and just like,
Ooh, love
right.
that. I'm gonna, okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's yours. I just put the hashtag in
I
front of
need to trademark that. Okay, press
it.
pause.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please do. Please do. um, so when you're looking, not only in Black women and mental health and how we prioritize ourselves, but also, in what ways do you think that societal perceptions or certain stereotypes about Black women really do impact their ability to prioritize their self care, or just to even seek help or support for their mental health?
So similar to maternal care, when it comes to Black women, we know that we are the bottom, the lowest in the totem pole when it comes to maternal care, and probably child death as a result of poor maternal care. A lot of times society looks at Black women as being angry, as being combative, as being complainers, or being dramatic. And that is kind of that stops us from wanting to really say something, right? Or we do say something. Just like maternal care, I think that it's not looked at as important or considered as much as it will with someone who is not a Black woman. So I think that's unfortunate that it does the same thing as maternal care, is that, oh, they're being dramatic, combative, and angry, when you're really like, no, I'm being an advocate for myself, but it looks different to society. And I think that is a big hindrance on why a lot of Black women do not want to say when something's mentally not well with them, or they're burning out, or they're tired and they need a break. Like society really doesn't make it a safe space, unfortunately.
Very, very true. Fully agree with that. Um, so when you're looking at your journey into being, sorry, so when you're looking at that fact of is kind of having, I don't want to say luring over your head, but just as a Black woman, we have all these things and things that we know that are probably preconceived notions of who we are, our level of strength when it comes to resilience. So you have the positive resilience, and then you have the negative resilience.
Yes.
But when you're looking at your journey, your personal journey, into becoming aware of the need to advocate for your own mental health, especially considering those things that are just preconceived about Black women in general. Can you tell us more about your journey into becoming aware of the need of advocacy, not only for yourself, but also just for others?
My biggest awareness is when I think it really clicked more so when I was applying for law school and I was applying for accommodations to take the law school admissions exam. So I had accommodations all in college. But when I went to do that, the board of law school admissions exams denied me the first time. And I am like, how do you deny me? And I have years, I have proof of this. I have these letters. I had it in college. So that's when I had to appeal their denials. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to really have to fight for myself and show them why I need it. And then it happened again when I was taking the bar exam, when I prepared to take it because I applied for accommodations and for full accommodations. And they gave me the accommodations that they thought were appropriate for me. And I'm like, no, I need my own room. I cannot be in a room with 10 people for 3 days, or it's hundreds of people when you take the bar exam. It's 1,000 people in a room. You're trying to minimize my room to 30 people and give me time and a half. No, I need double time. The same thing I've had for college, the same thing I had for law school. That's the only way I passed, And another thing that I also do is that when I, saw that there was a problem with the ADHD and I wanted to start taking medication for it. And even the depression, I started on medicine, but some of them didn't work. Some of them made me worse. Some of the side effects were bad. Even now, I have medication. I've been on medication for 17 years, and been pretty successful on it. But when I feel like I need to turn it up a little bit, when a season of depression around that time, if I feel like I'm getting a little more stressed and overwhelmed, I will tell my doctor, like, I don't know, I don't like how this one, they gave me one. And I was like, oh no, no, that one is giving something different. That was giving narcotics. I don't want to be like that in court. So can we try something else? They'll give me something else. And I'm like, can we turn that one down a little bit? People can't help you unless you say something. And I tell people all the time, don't just assume that people know. Even in college, I think the first time that I advocated for myself, now that I rolled that back in my head, is when I first received my diagnosis and I re-enrolled at a local university. The first thing I did was talk to my professors, and I pulled all of them to the side and I said, hey, I was just diagnosed with this, this, and this. I'm trying to learn how to navigate life like this. I'm on different medications. I'm tired sometimes. I just want to let you know I'm a hard worker, but sometimes I just may not make the cut. Every last one of my professors were very, very empathetic and understood. Professor Suzanne Fleming, I always say this, I owe her so much. When I finally passed the bar and I became an attorney, I found her grandchild, which is probably like 70 something now. I found her, one of her grandchildren on Facebook, and I said, can you please give her my information and tell her I made it? And I want to thank her. She was my journalism professor, but when I put her to the side in the hallway, she actually gave me a hug, and she probably was about 4 feet 10, cute little white lady, blonde hair, cutest thing ever. And she gave me a hug and she said, thank you so much for telling me that. I have family members who suffer from it. So I know what it feels like. And I can help you any way you want outside of the class as well. So classes were on Wednesday. She would meet me every Saturday at a coffee shop near the university and help me go over everything that I did not understand. And same thing for my Spanish professor. Because of my learning disorder, I'm not able to pick up on conjugation, just like numbers. I can't really conjugate. So I would email her at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and be like, listen, I'm trying, but I just cannot get this. Like for our exams, and surprisingly, our exams were that she would walk around the classroom and we had to have conversations with each other and she would listen to it. She would just come and have the conversation with me and just would use like the 10 words that I knew how to use. And like that was the most generous C I have ever received in my life because I should have gotten an F. But I was like, well, if I didn't say anything or advocate, then that wouldn't have happened. So that probably was my first stage. And I was like, oh wow, you can speak up.
Very true. And I love the spotlight that's been put on. There's just so many gems, literally the Resilient Gem.
Oh,
But I think that it's so important, that reminder that you put in of people aren't going to know unless you tell them. So it's like, why, say something. You can
yeah.
always adjust something, especially going to the doctor. That
Mhm.
piece in its own. Being able to know that if it doesn't feel right, you can say something. You probably should, you
Yeah.
know, you're the one who has to function like that.
Yeah, it's their job. Yeah. Don't do their jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, and the seeds that are really planted by the supportive community overall. And I think that's the best part of the Your Voice is Your Power programming and in all these pieces. Because again, the sharing stories and having that community piece there, even being able to go back and say thank you. I love hearing that because I've been bragging about my middle school teacher for the last month for no reason.
Aw. Yeah, and I
Still
don't think
trying.
they know how much of a difference they make. She wrote me a letter to get into law school, and I'm like, just tell her I made it, please. Tell her I made it. Thanks to her.
Did you end up hearing back from her?
Yes, I did. And she emailed me back and said, I'm so proud of you and please keep me posted. Yeah, I told her she's going to be in my book, in my memoir. I'm definitely going to put her in there. So, yeah, she was very happy for me.
Oh, that's so. I love that. I love
Yeah.
stuff like that. Just pulling on my little heartstrings. I know
Oh,
emotion.
yeah. Because of Suzanne Fleming.
um. So, as a professional now, what do you do to prioritize your self care? What do you do as just your little slice of heaven, your self care when needed?
I'm gonna be so honest, and people are usually shocked a little bit when I say this, but I think it's real when some people follow it. I don't. Some people say they like to be one with nature. They like to do yoga. They like to do all this other stuff. I don't want to do none of that. For self care, I don't try. I don't want to. I sit here and I find stuff to binge on Netflix. I order a pizza. I order brownies. I order a liter of soda, and I just do nothing. I take my naps. I watch whatever I want, and sometimes I may do that for a day or two. But that's what my self care looks like because I'm depleted, and that actually recharges me to be able to do nothing. So sometimes self care just looks like doing what I want to do. And at that particular time, a lot of it looks like nothing. When I was more active in my self care, when I was a little less busier, I would do a lot of volunteering and a lot of service projects. I was very active in the community, and especially communities that I care. I would do a lot of community days, a lot of work with children and nonprofits, people who had other disorders or disenfranchised communities. So I did a lot of service, and that made me feel good. I still do some periodically when I have a little more energy, but my self care a lot of times looks like turning my phone off and doing nothing in this house and just being in a fantasy land for a couple of days.
I love it. I call that a mental nippy nap.
Yes, yes.
Um, so, how do you feel that your work in law and doing these speaking presentations, working in the community, and even doing things such as this, like speaking to those youth and young adults who are striving for advocacy or who are just looking to be seen, heard, and understood. How do you feel that your work, as well as your work in the community, reinforce your self advocacy?
I think that it shows me that there's a need for it. And before I shared my story, when I shared my story in 2016, when I finally passed the bar, that was the first time I ever shared my diagnosis publicly. Only my parents knew, and maybe and my siblings, and maybe like two of my best friends, but no one knew. So I was terrified to share that story. And when I shared it, number one, I didn't know it was going to go viral, and I didn't know many people were going to be there, and the audience was going to be that loud, that large. But the feedback that I had from it, and that's kind of what launched my speaking career. I was not speaking before that. I was just in the courtroom. So I had never spoken publicly at all before that in general to large audiences. So I think it showed me that number one, people need your story. People need to know that it's okay not to be okay. People need to know that you're going to fail. People need to know that sometimes, like I tell people, I've gotten more no's than yeses in my life, but I always receive the yeses that I needed. People need to know that your journey it's not going to be easy. I say that all the time. It is not going to be easy. It's going to be ups and downs and twists and turns, some more than others. But I think it reinforces when I speak now and people come up to me afterwards. And when people, send me messages on LinkedIn and even in the quarter, the big civil rights news cases that I'm doing now, and the family members are talking to me after about how they're not doing well and how, they haven't slept in days and they're doing this. And then I can identify it as depression. And I'm like, I want you to go see a psychiatrist. Like, you're dealing with depression, even if you have to get, something for anxiety just to help you get through this difficult time. it pours into me each time I pour into other people, and I didn't realize it's actually therapeutic to me. And it's probably more therapeutic to me than other people. But when I see that change in people's lives, particularly like college students, when I was that same age, and a lot of mental illnesses, they surface around college age, like 19, 20, 21. So when I see students, and I speak to a lot of students, and they're saying, oh, wow, I finally met somebody who can explain and feels the exact same way I feel now. Like, I thought I was alone. I can't tell you how many students say that to me. And I'm like, wow, you really, and they're like, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know who to talk to. Like, this is identical to what I'm feeling now. And that just, for me, that definitely puts a smile in my heart and on my face.
And I love that. I love to hear when it's one of those things, especially those who do share their stories, because it's hard to get up there and do that, which is why I give y'all all the kudos in the world. But I
It
can
really
tell you
is.
back that I am not getting up on no stage.
It's hard. It
But
is.
I think that that's the beautiful part of it, and what you do and what you give back is the fact that it is pouring into you. I love hearing that. But it is a really good piece that I think people forget about, that sharing is not only to say I'm helping other people, but being seen. It's a mirror, right?
Yeah, and making a difference. You know that you, because when I didn't tell my story and I first started telling, like, nobody cares. They don't want to hear this. I can care less. But getting that validation and that feedback and those testimonials and those comments under stuff I post, I'm like, I'm really making a difference. And that was my why. Like, when I started and I wanted to be an attorney, my why was to give second chances and make a difference, and be a, show and a testament to other people. So this just confirms my why, and that I'm really making a difference.
I love
And all
that.
my suffering wasn't in vain. That's what it reminds me. Because sometimes I'm like, I went through all this, and what do I get? So it lets me know that it wasn't in vain.
I love that. I love that. I do. So last but not least on my little question list here, how do you see the role of self advocacy and self care evolving within the broader conversation around mental health and wellness for Black women?
So I think now we are starting to make our own safe spaces in that area. We're not waiting for other people to tell us it's okay, or to create the opportunities. We're doing conferences, we're writing books, we're writing devotionals, we're having self-acceptance activities. We are prioritizing, like, if it doesn't feel good, if I don't want to do it, I'm going to speak up. But I think that we are creating our own lane in safe space to say, this is what we want to do, and having conferences. We have so many women's conferences, right? And wellness conferences and wellness retreats. We are having so many of them as Black women and Black professionals. I spoke at a women's lawyers wellness retreat last year, and there was hundreds of us, and I'm like, oh, wow. So we are making it popular. Well, even if it's not popular, we're doing it unapologetically, and we're doing it for ourselves and creating our own lane and not waiting for someone else.
Making your seat at the table. Love it.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
So when we're looking at just to give a little inspiration for those who are looking for something, just to kind of look to, right? Do you have a mindful song, poem, an affirmation, or a quote that you'd like to share?
So I am a big quote girl. Maybe because I'm a journalist at heart, so I'm a big quote girl. So my two of my favorite quotes, that I look at all the time, are, the first one is, success is not to be measured so much by the level one has reached in life, as much by the level that one has overcome while trying to succeed. And that's by Booker T. Washington. And the other one is going to be, I failed over and over and over again in life, and that is why I succeed. And that is by Michael Jordan.
I love that. I love that. The repetition piece. I love
Yes.
it.
Oh, because I have failed over and over and over.
Right. I was like that. Okay, I can see you having that mantra like, oh no, we're gonna keep moving.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. I would love to close out with just a mindfulness moment. Do you have any exercise or anything that you do just to be able to kind of ground yourself in a mindfulness moment, such as like meditation, anything of that sort?
So something I started doing during the pandemic, I think when all of us were trying not to lose it, I started embracing myself and allowing myself to feel whatever I was feeling and not rushing that feeling and not trying to, cover it up with wine or something like that, and allowing myself for a particular amount of time to feel it. So what I would do is I would sit on a couch or somewhere where my feet were grounded, like without shoes on, where I can feel the surface. And I would wrap my hands around myself like a child, and I would rock, and I would close my eyes, and I would say, yes, it hurts. And yes, it doesn't feel good. And yes, you're upset. And yes, you don't like it. And I would just rock and rock and rock. And I would say, but you're going to be okay. I'm about to get teary eyed now. And I would be like, just whatever I was going through at that moment, I would say, yeah, you don't like it, but you're going to be okay. And I would just rock myself like someone else, like a child, and just allow myself to cry and whatever I needed to do. And at the end, I'd be like, but you're going to be okay. And I would feel so much better. I would just get it out.
I love that, because you always hear of like verbal validation, but I feel like that's like that physical validation.
Yeah. It's like a child. I was like, I kind of saw it as like my inner child, and kind of like caressing that inner child, things that I may not have gotten, younger. And I was just like, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And just tell myself like a parent, like, you're going to be okay.
Exactly. That's where my mind first went. And I was like, oh man, I'm about to dip it into a whole. I love the conversation about getting in touch with your inner child. But nonetheless, I am adding that to my book of things to do. So thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for being here, being in this space, sharing this space with me, as well as answering my lovely questions, and giving us all a really good glimpse into what is it that you do, how you got started. Especially we see all these great achievements, which I love that we got a chance to hear into your prac book. But it was very grounding, and I truly appreciate being able to get the chance to know you better. I love it.
Me too. And thank you all for having me on. It was a pleasure. Definitely I don't know, it was the first season. So the pleasure and privilege is all mine.
Well, thank you so much to Jade, and thank you to everyone else for joining us here today, and listening in, and giving us a little bit more time of your day. If you would like to give us feedback, because we love to hear what you think, whether you love the episode, we would love to hear how this affected you today, but also if you have any tidbits for anything that you would like to see for upcoming episodes or upcoming seasons, we would love to hear that as well. And if you would like to give us that feedback on this podcast episode, please check out our survey in the show notes. And we look forward to seeing you soon. So tune in next time for our next little chat. Thank you.